And now Gunther looking to eliminate Cody Rhodes and win the... Oh! Cody Rhodes! Crossroads to Gunther! Gunther eliminating the American Nightmare! One step closer to the American Dream! Here's the winner of the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble match, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes! Undesirable, undeniable, uncrowned, but the goal still remains the same. This is just one more step in the journey. Finish the story at WrestleMania.
Let's get ready to sucker!
It's sunny. You've always known that.
Drop the gun and get on the ground.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Vinny Appicello. You are listening to the Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. And as you heard at the top of the episode, Cody Rhodes is the 2023 Men's Royal Rumble winner, happening this past Saturday, live from San Antonio, Texas, from the Alamo Dome. He now goes on to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania against whoever is the world champion, the Undisputed WWE Universal Champion, I should say, which probably by that time will be Roman Reigns still. But with that said, I do want to apologize for my voice. I am a little bit under the weather today. Actually, it's been like that for pretty much the entire week, which is why I did not post an episode last week. And the week before, unfortunately, my schedule got in the way. So it's been 2 weeks without an episode of Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. So we're going to go through a lot. Obviously, we're not going to go through just absolutely everything we missed. And I do want to apologize if I take extra breaks just to wet my throat, because that's one of the parts of not feeling good, is a sore throat. And when you talk for a podcast and talk for almost an hour, your voice tends to die. With that said, I want to thank you all for listening. Our last episode was a bonus episode that was put out with the interview with Guy Evans. Guy Evans, of course, is the author of Nitro, The Incredible Rise and Inevitable Fall of Ted Turner's WCW, as well as the co-author of Eric Bischoff's recent autobiography, Grateful. Both those available on GuyEvansBooks.com, as well as Amazon and everywhere you find your favorite books. Follow Guy on Twitter at GuyEvansBooks. So I want to thank you all for listening to that. And it's still up there, so feel free, if you haven't gotten the opportunity to check, go ahead and listen to that. But you can also follow me on Twitter at VApicellasuds. Follow the show on Twitter at SudsSQCirclePod. Follow on TikTok at Suds_squared_circle. Follow on Instagram at Suds_squared_circle. Email me, Vinny, VINNIE, at SudsandSquaredCircle.com. The website is www.SudsandSquaredCircle.com. Buy our merch at SudsSquareCircle.threadless.com to buy our logo t-shirt. I am going to be putting more logos up there eventually, and more items that you could buy. But I want to thank you all for listening today. It is Monday, January 30th, 2023. I'm going to start out, and I do have a couple of clips. Obviously, I do not own the clips. I'm going to put that disclaimer out there right now. I do not own the clips. Obviously, the clips of the Royal Rumble are courtesy of are owned by World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE Incorporated, and I do have a clip from General Hospital, which is owned by Disney, which is, on ABC, Hulu, wherever you get your favorite soap operas. With that said, I will not be, I have been getting caught up with Days. Days of Our Lives. I will start incorporating a little bit of that into it. If I have time, I may end up separating to a different show, similar to what James Lott Jr. does, and do a specific Days show, keep one GH, keep one WWE. I don't know. But I don't have enough time to do 3 separate shows. But I'm also working on possibly getting Matt from the 10th Floor podcast to come on, and we're going to talk nerdy wrestling and soaps at some point in the near future. He did give me a plug, or give this show a plug on his show this week, so on the 10th Floor, so definitely check that out, but also keep an eye out for that episode that should be coming in the works soon. With that said, a lot of stuff to go over at General Hospital. We all know now that Nina is Willow's mother. It came out in a fantastic scene. I mean, we've known for a while, but Nina now knows that she's Willow's mother. Came out in a fantastic scene between Cynthia Watros and Laura Wright. Obviously, Carly and Nina in a chapel of all places. And I'm going to bring you the last bit of that dialogue. Cynthia Watros did fantastic work on that episode and in that part. So I'm going to go to that right now. Again, this is going to be the end of the conversation between Nina and Carly, where Carly tells Nina, or Nina goes off on Carly for holding the secret for so long that she's been Willow's mother.
You made me feel like the scum of the earth for a year. You kept saying over and over again how I was wrecking your family. What about my family? How could you keep me away from my child?
You can lash out at me all you want after you get tested.
Don't tell me what to do, Carly! Go to hell! You selfish bitch! I'm gonna go save my daughter.
So there you have it. Nina going off on Carly because Carly held the secret for a year, calling her a selfish bitch, which is kind of the truth. But it's funny because Carly gets away with everything. And, it's like, that's what I don't like, because now I want to bring up a topic. This kind of goes into the whole wrestling soap opera style. I'm going to put this poll on, not only on Spotify, where Suds and Squirts Girl is, but I'm also going to put it up on Twitter as well. Do you consider Carly a heel or a babyface? Reason why is because that conversation came up on the 10th Floor earlier today, and Matt, who has been involved with wrestling in the past, said that a babyface is somebody who does things good, good things, wholehearted things, and they are the good person. They're the hero, so to speak. And a heel is a bad guy, an evil person. So I want to know, is Carly a heel or a babyface or a heel to you in your eyes? The reason why I say that is, while I do agree with what Matt said about the difference between a heel and a babyface, ultimately it's the fans, it's the audience that chooses who's the heel and who's the babyface. Because here's the deal. I did put out a tweet last week or the week before that I can't wait for Cam's heel turn, and it's slowly happening. Now, in my opinion, when I watch wrestling, when I look at things, a heel is somebody you want to cheer against, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person per se. Perfect example, when Kurt Angle in 2000 or 1999 came into the WWE, he was a heel, but he was also one of those people that is a quote-unquote good guy. Say you're, not say you're praising your vitamins, but intensity, integrity, intelligence, the 3 I's, came off as, he's an Olympic hero for the nation, he's a national treasure, and people booed him out of the building. He was a heel because he was going against what the fans wanted. Now, in my opinion, I don't know. The soap community is so split, whether it's on Team Nina or Team Carly. So that's what I want. That's what I want to know: is Carly a baby face or a heel? I'm gonna get a mixed. I know I'm gonna get a mixed example and a mixed answer for that, which is fine. But I want to know whether she ranks as a heel or a baby face. Cam, see, everybody's voting and rooting for Joss and Dex. They're the baby faces. Yes, Joss may be an antagonist, as Matt said, an anti-hero, like a Stone Cold Steve Austin or a Rock. Even though The Rock was very cocky and very arrogant, he was also more often than not a heel. Although in the grand sense of the word, he was babyface because the fans got behind him. The fans rooted for him. Same thing with Roman Reigns now. Now, with this past Saturday with the Royal Rumble and everything that went down, maybe we'll see that that Roman Reigns is back on that lead heel turn, or the lead heel role. Even though he's been a heel for over 2 years now, he's been the number one heel because ever since he came back at SummerSlam of 2020, during the Thunderdome era, right? He's been a heel. He came back with Paul Heyman, bad guy. But the Bloodline themselves, they get cheered. Now, going forward, I wonder how many of the cheers were because of Sami Zayn. But I'm a fan of the Bloodline. I'm a fan of their work. Roman Reigns turned up the notch. Heyman is incredible on the mic. The Usos are fantastic. Solo Sikoa knows his role, so to speak. He's the enforcer of the Bloodline. So, yeah, and I know I completely switched from GH to wrestling, but that comes with the territory, right? I do want to say that I personally feel that Carly is a heel. But see, here's the other thing. She never gets her just due. She never gets her, as the people in the South say, her what for, right? And she never gets the people that, she never gets any accountability for her actions. This past week, all right, now we saw the rockiness between Drew and Carly, right? Now, Carly actively sabotaged his case to try to find Willow's mother. She knew she lied to him when she got the paternity test back, or the maternity test back, the blood test, whether Nina and Willow were mother or daughter. She specifically lied, sabotaged, and everything. And Drew's just she goes over crying, saying, "I'm sorry, I know it was bad," and and Drew's just like, "Oh well, I can't have this in the future. We have to be on it," and then they fall into bed together. So it's like this lie that Drew is, supposedly a goody-goody, but he just doesn't hold Carly accountable. In that case, he was thinking with his small head rather than his big head. But at the same time, it's like, I would think if that's such a big lie, if she's going to actively sabotage the case, that would probably be the end. But no, Carly doesn't get it. And then with Michael was initially furious that Carly held the truth. Okay, so, but see, here's the thing. Is that the other side of it is, if Willow didn't hold this secret from Michael, from everybody, from her family, right, for so long, maybe then Carly would have been, more apt to share the information and say, hey, Willow's your mother, Nina's your mother. Here's a possibility for your blood marrow transplant. She could be a donor. Now it turns out she's not a viable donor, right? But, again, there's more people that could be tested. There's Liesel. There's, unfortunately, Britt passed away. I don't know if they used bone marrow from a dead person. I don't know. I'm not sure. But also, now Terry's like, oh, well, we can use the stem cells from the umbilical cord from the baby that you're carrying now. We just got to get the baby out of you. You know what I mean? And why wasn't that an option at the beginning? Knowing she was then again, nobody knew whether she was going to keep the baby or if the baby would survive. Again, we don't, you never know. Obviously, the baby's alive and well, going into her 8th month, and Terry's like, we could take the baby out now, either induce labor or do a C-section, and then we'll get the the stem cells from the umbilical cord, and that'll, inject them into you, and that should heal you. So, Willow should live. We'll see how it goes this week, but my thing is like, even Willow, everybody's justifying Carly's actions and her secrets and saying, oh, well, we understand why you held it, why you held the secret, but why did you, the only person that's not holding her accountable is Carly, is Nina. And Nina is going off on her and saying, you knew all this time, you did an illegal blood test and an illegal, lab test to try to see if she's my daughter, and then you held the truth for 8 months. How are you better than me? Now, see, here's the deal. Carly held twice that Nina's children were her children. She hid the fact that Nell was her child and then told Nina after the fact. And then she hid the fact that Willow is her child for, 8 months now. So what makes Carly any better than Nina? Nina never told Carly that Sonny was in Nixon Falls and suffering from amnesia and all this. But it's like Nina did try. She tried to tell Carly until Carly went off on her. In my opinion right now, Nina is the babyface. Nina is the one that you're rooting for because she's the one in the right. She's had her ups and downs. She's done some stuff. She's stuck her nose into where it doesn't belong, especially with, Willow and TJ. And, that's it. But again, Willow was the one that was lying about her health. Now, yes, I understand you don't always want to divulge your health history or health information or whatever to everybody, right? But when it comes to something to the point of something to the effect of cancer, leukemia, and you're pregnant, she should have told Michael. And in my opinion, she's been acting very selfish. And Nina was spot on. Willow, Carly's been very selfish, right? But Willow's also been very selfish. I don't have any sympathy for her because she's the one that has gone ahead and said, oh, well, I'm not going to tell anybody that I have leukemia. Everybody knows I'm pregnant. I'm not going to tell anybody. And then I'm not going to tell anybody until after the chemo is done. And then, all this stuff, and then it comes out, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Why did you say anything in the beginning? We could have worked towards this now. We could have set up a marrow drive. We could have had more time to find a donor, right? All this stuff that could have happened if Willow did not keep the information to herself. And, and not to mention the whole fainting thing. Like, we all know in soap world, fainting is the sign of something's wrong. Although, 95% of the time, fainting is a sign of pregnancy in soap world, right? Even though it's not necessarily what actually happens in the real world. But, with Willow passing out, now that's when she found out she had leukemia. At that point in time, she should have at least told Michael. And said, hey, I've got to make a decision about this baby. I have leukemia. Do I keep the baby? Do I, get rid of the have an abortion or what have you? And you know what? I've heard some things. I saw some things on Twitter saying, oh, this is just an anti-vax, anti-sickness, or anti-medicine storyline. Listen, here's the deal. While Disney is a woke company, right? While ABC is in the woke category and they're all trying to be so politically correct on things, I get that, but each character has their own set of, morals and values. So, Willow is at the point of, I want to play this out. And that's her character. That's her character. So why is it an anti, medication or anti-medicine or anti-whatever, agenda for this show, right? Every character has different values. So maybe the character of Willow has those different values, right? Which could be. And I know that you're going to get into the thing of, well, there's the writers and the creative and everything has to be just so. No. In real life, everybody has different values. In real life, people have different thoughts and ideas, and they're not just one-dimensional. It's not always one way or another way. It's not always liberal or conservative. It's not always, progressive or conservative. You know what I mean? It's not always one way or the other. everybody has different shades of gray. And while, Willow may be somebody that champions for, whatever, she may also have these other ideas saying, hey, I don't necessarily trust the doctors, or, you know what I mean? Although Willow was becoming a nurse and would have known half of the stuff that she, quote unquote, didn't know during her pregnancy. So, again, I'm not understanding exactly where that problem lies. And I don't know why people think that, but they just want to get mad at everything. We know it. In this culture and society, everybody's got to be one way of thinking, or you get canceled, or somebody complains about everything. You know what I mean? Everybody has some kind of a problem with everything, whether it's wrestling, whether it's soap operas, whether it's politics, whether it's anything, right? Although I don't necessarily see a lot of stuff that's, people say about Law and Order. All right, so Joss and Dex. Moving on. Joss and Dex, great, big props to William Lipton. I got to say that. Big props to William Lipton. He played a fantastic, a couple of fantastic scenes. The breakup with Joss, and then afterwards when he went to Joss's dorm room and saw Dex there, and that whole scene there. And that's the thing, is that he had a character change, right? He has kind of stopped being this whiny, weak thing, like, oh, everything's okay, we're just gonna go live on, and you're gonna be just completely naive to everything, and I'm just gonna work and everything's okay, right? And being okay with everything. But now that he's had his heart broken, now it's when he gets that attitude, and he tells Joss, why should I keep the secret for Dex? Why should I worry about that? Who cares if Sonny will kill him? It's not my problem. You're choosing him over me. I owe you nothing. I owe him nothing. Right? So that's where I say he's got a heel turn in him, right? Because he's going to go to the dark side. And I know it's not necessarily he's going to become a bad guy, but he's going to have that character change. He's going to go from that, good guy, helping everybody and whatever, and he's going to be like, F you people, right? You guys never looked out for me. You guys never wanted me to be, happy, right? You broke my heart, Joss, and you did this and you did that, and I owe you nothing. I owe you absolutely nothing. I owe Dex nothing. Because you decided, you moved on already, like I'm a piece of meat. And you did not care one bit about how I felt before you moved on and had somebody else in your bed. Right? And we only slept together 1 or 2 times. And our relationship meant nothing to you. Right? And you could visualize that promo. You could visualize that interview segment. Just have Byron Saxton or Mean Gene Okerlund right there, and Cameron's right there, and the emotion of that story. And Joss, you never cared about me. You decided to break up with me because your feelings changed, and then you decided to move on with this guy, and now you have the balls to ask me to keep a secret for you, for him. I owe you nothing, right? And just that guttural type of promo, and he hit it out of the park. And I got to say, I'm really amped up for what might come. Knowing that Dex is technically a heel, right? Because he's a bodyguard for the mob, and Joss is the one that broke Cam's heart. But everybody's cheering for him. Everybody likes Dex and Joss. And I know soap operas aren't, as clear cut as wrestling, right? There's a lot of, people of the gray, people, tweeners, as they say. But like Roman Reigns has been, he's like, I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. I'm the guy, right? That was, a couple of years ago when he was a tweener. But that's what it boils down to, is that you have a lot of, areas of gray, and it depends on who you like and who you care about. So the poll question is going to be, do you consider Carly a babyface, or do you consider Carly a heel? So I'll put that up after this episode and put that on the Suds in the Squared Circle Twitter account at Suds Square Circle at Suds SQ Circle Pod. Okay, but I want to just touch on that. Let's see, anything else go on this week? Obviously, the more truths are going to come out between Portia and Curtis as their Valentine's Day wedding comes up, and how people are starting to question things, and Marshall's whether he actually did have schizophrenia or not is coming up, and Portia is just needling it. Like, oh, there's a lot of tests now, and maybe you were misdiagnosed. Maybe you never had it in the first place. And Marshall was perfect in that scene. And he's like, and I think the actor's name is Louis Gossett, I think. But he said it, and you could feel the emotion. Like, if I find out that I was never diagnosed, that means all the sacrifices that I did meant nothing. All the years that I didn't care, all the years that I put my family out and stayed away from my family because of this schizophrenia, this diagnosis, and if I find out I was misdiagnosed, it's all for nothing. Why would I want to know now? Because then he'll have so many regrets and everything, and I get it. As a father, I get it. And here's the deal. With Portia being a doctor, I get it. You want to know, and you feel like everybody want to know their medical history, right? And that they're, anything that they may have been diagnosed with, and if they were misdiagnosed and everything, I get that. I completely understand that, because you want to know your history. So if you go to a doctor's appointment and they say, oh, well, what do you have? Oh, well, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1970, whatever, or the 60s or 70s or whatever, and then it's like, well, you don't have it. You don't have schizophrenia. There's no markers there, and that's, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it, because that also determines what kind of medications you might have to be on, right? So, with that said, it's like, I completely understand why Marshall would not want to find out whether or not he's actually schizophrenic. However, with that said, it's sometimes hard when you're, it's sometimes hard with trying to cope with a diagnosis or an undiagnosis or something that you might have, you know what I mean? So I understand both sides of the story, but kudos to Marshall for that, right? But the whole thing is, now that Curtis has no markers, now they're going to, I wonder if they're going to keep going with the whole Trina is Marshall or Curtis's. Trina is either Curtis or Taggart's daughter, right? Because obviously now there's no marker for Curtis to possibly pass on, and I get why they did DNA testing. I get it. They want to have children, right? So they want to make sure that nothing is out of the ordinary for Portia and Curtis. But anyways, I want to see if they're gonna, if Jordan's gonna be the kind of person where it's gonna affect the wedding and her come out. Do you have any objections? And I object because she's lying to him, right? And I know, because I lied to him too, and that's what made our marriage fall apart. And I don't know, it could have been, I think it could have been done a little differently, before Jordan actually signed the divorce papers. She could have went to Curtis and said, hey, I know some information that I don't know if Portia has shared with you, but I feel like you should know. and, go on from there. And, at that point in time, who knows? Would Curtis see Jordan as, oh, she just wants to be a shit disturber in my marriage, in my relationship? Or would he go off to Portia and say, how could you lie to me about this all these years later? 20-something years, or 18 years, or 20 years. How could you lie to me and not tell me that Trina might be my daughter, right? So we'll see how that goes. I hope they have Tiger back for that. I mean, he did make a brief appearance this week, or last week, I should say. Just as, they were talking about Trina and Trina getting closer to Spencer, and you know what I mean? So they did kind of have Taggart there, and but not a really big role, but I think he'll have more of a role as we go towards the February wedding. Spencer, it kind of brings me to the next point. Spencer finally telling Trina that he feels that he could raise the baby, Nicholas and Esme's baby, better than Nicholas or Esme. And Trina kind of set him straight. How, just because you think one way doesn't mean you're actually going to do it. You're, who are you going to have for support? You have enough money, but at the same time, where are you going to live? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Because you have to put the baby first, and your life has to go on hold, and all the logical thought processes for people, right? And he's not even in a position where he has to get ready for a baby because, Esme is a capable mother, some, quote unquote, but also Nicholas is a very capable father. And they're rehashing the storyline of, like Michael was pissed at Sonny for something, right? And then for killing AJ. So he took the baby away. I would love to have Michael kind of talk to Spencer. I know Michael's got so much talk going around, but I would love to have Michael talk to Spencer and be like, hey, I could take it from me. I've had this vendetta against my father for a long time for a couple of reasons. When I took Avery, I wasn't ready for a child, right? I wasn't ready. And I only did it out of spite. Make sure if you're going to do this, that you're ready to raise a baby. Make sure that you are, not doing it out of spite, and you're doing it out of what's the best interest for the child, and go from there. That would be a great scene to see, but I don't see Michael and Spencer actually, going too close to each other in the orbit, so to speak. It would be nice to see that, but Spencer is closer to Sonny, so it's kind of hard for him to kind of break away and kind of go to Michael, unless maybe Spencer is the peacekeeper and it goes between them and kind of gets Sonny closer to Michael, right? But I really, I really like the scenes with Sonny and Willow, when Sonny was at, her bed, just keeping watch, and how she was talking to him and saying, it's just, you only have one life, and why waste it on you know what I mean, on grudges. So, I mean, quite honestly, he's got to talk to, she shouldn't really tell that to Michael, but, it is what it is there. But I think she has. That's why when Sonny left the room after sitting with Willow that first time, Michael hesitated and almost went to Sonny. And, and it's like, it's never going to be the best relationship. It's never going to be the, the absolute easiest thing. And trust me, when it comes to parents, my family puts the fun in dysfunctional. And, it's like, while my father and I have never really seen eye to eye, and there are times where I just don't want to talk to him, and the kind of people that we are clash, you know what I mean? But I would never, I would always be upset if anything happened to him, right? Whether or not I'm, on talking terms, you know what I mean? So, we'll see how that plays out, and see if Michael and Sonny actually do come together. I know they have had a brief conversation, and Sonny got to tell Michael, you're doing a great job as a father. But I want to see, if that's going to be repaired. I want to see if Nicholas and Spencer are going to repair their relationship. You know what I mean? Like, Nicholas has done so much to hurt Spencer because he's a Cassadine and he does whatever the hell he wants, right? And he never even thought about Spencer's feelings. I'm not going to hold breaking up with Britt as something, because you shouldn't have to really worry about your kids' feelings when it comes to a breakup, with the exception of if it's a long term, like they were together for less than a year, Right? She shouldn't even met Spencer yet, but that's a different point. But yeah, so I want to see where that's going to play out. And we'll see who the new Nicholas is going to be. Who is it? As far as I know, they just recently aired Marcus Coloma's last scene. So then they got a couple of weeks of a replacement. And then after that, is it going to be a permanent replacement? Is it going to be a temporary replacement? Is it going to be, Adam Huss coming back to play? Is it going to be Tyler Christopher? We still don't know. Obviously, the fans want Tyler Christopher back, but I don't know whether or not he'll be able to do it. So that remains to be seen. All right. Let me just see. Is there anything else that really has to go on? Oh, yeah. Cameron kind of telling Elizabeth about his, it was earlier, a couple weeks ago. I like that Cam actually confided in his mother and said, a lot of times I didn't tell you because you were so busy with everything you're going through that I didn't want you to worry about me. And that's what I mean. Cameron is such a good guy, right? And even though they're breaking up, as soon as he heard about Willow being sick, that's why he went to Joss's dorm room. Now, he could have technically called or whatever, but as the guy that got broken up with, he's going to get to the point where he just wants to. He wanted to be the one for Joss to cry on, right? Because he still cares and he still loves her, and she's like, "Well, we can still be friends." And Cam's like, "No, we can't. We can't be friends. We can't just go back to being friends. Maybe after a couple of years. I mean, I'm friends with my ex. She's my best friend. But it took a while to get to that point. You know what I mean? You have to get those feelings out of the way, or else you're going to fall into a rut." And the best analogy I heard about taking an ex back, right? About going back to your ex, it's like taking a crap, taking a shit, and trying to push it back in, because it's out of you for a reason. So it just makes sense that if they take some time apart, maybe they'll be able to get back to being friends. But for right now, you need the time. You need the time apart. And that's all there is to it. All right. Done about a half hour on General Hospital. So I want to move on now to WWE and go on to this past Saturday's Royal Rumble, the fallout from it. And I want to start out with the audio from the winner of the 2023 Women's Royal Rumble match right now.
Rhea eliminates Asuka. Rhea hangs on. Morgan's blinded by the mist.
I'm not entirely sure Liv Morgan had a contingency plan for being misted by Asuka.
Liv has no idea where she even is. Backed up into the corner. Just got to try to get back in the ring, but she's blinded. Liv, find your way. Oh my goodness. Rhea's hanging on. Slipped off the apron. Did the feet touch? No. Liv can't see a thing. Yeah, on instinct alone. Morgan eliminated by Rhea Ripley. Rhea's going to WrestleMania.
Here is your 2023 Women's Royal Rumble winner, Rhea Ripley!
Guys, Rhea Ripley becomes just the fourth person in the 35-year history of the Royal Rumble match to go from #1 to winning the event, and now gets her pick of what champion she wants to face in the main event at WrestleMania.
Again, courtesy of Peacock, WWE on Peacock. It was from the Royal Rumble this past Saturday. Rhea Ripley goes on to win the 2023 Women's Battle Royal, last eliminating Liv Morgan. And what's amazing is that if they were both 1 and 2, And actually, to be honest with you, in both Royal Rumble matches, the number one entrant was there at the end. Not only did Rhea Ripley win from the number one spot in the men's Royal Rumble, Gunther was number one, and he was there last eliminated by Cody Rhodes. Gunther set the record for 70 minutes in a traditional Royal Rumble match, and then Rhea Ripley set the record for the longest in a women's Royal Rumble match. Actually, Liv and Rhea both, because they were both obviously in there for the same amount of time. They surpassed the previous record holder, which I believe was Sasha Banks, if I'm not mistaken. No, it wasn't Sasha. It was Bianca Belair. That's right, from 2020. But definitely a great event. The entire event from top to bottom, for the most part, was great. The pitch black match was a little goofy. I don't like the fact that LA Knight is in there, but you know what? It was a good sports entertainment spectacle. And they're weaving the Uncle Howdy gimmick between both Raw and SmackDown, because not only did you see it with Bray Wyatt, but you also saw it with Alexa Bliss. It's not, it's a lot of the gaga, right? And that's why they brought in the guy from Marvel for the long-term storytelling, plotting, which is okay. And it's all right. I don't foresee LA Knight being on there, part of that for too much longer. Hopefully now that the pitch black match is over and Bray Wyatt goes in a different direction, LA Knight can get focused on his singles career and actually move into that Intercontinental title bracket. And LA Knight versus Gunther would be awesome. But they're also actually setting up a WrestleMania, Gunther and Brock Lesnar, which is going to be a fantastic match in itself. They did tease that in the Rumble with Gunther eliminating Brock. And there were actually a number of people that Gunther stood up to. So there's a lot of potential in him. Fantastic wrestler. I give props. He was definitely the MVP. Even though Cody Rhodes won from number 30, Gunther was the MVP of that Royal Rumble. In the women's, we saw the return of Michelle McCool, who for the first time ever, there was somebody that entered the Royal Rumble from the stands. She was sitting watching from front row with her family. And then their music started playing, so she just hopped the rail and went in. That was actually kind of cool. You saw the return of Nia Jax to the company in number 30. We don't know whether that's one-off, but I wouldn't mind seeing her play a role in the Bloodline, because she's part of that whole, family. Missing from, you also saw, you also saw like Indy Hartwell and Zoe Stark come up from NXT. Saw the NXT Women's Champion, Roxanne Perez. Now, in the Women's Rumble, there were a lot of people who were upset at the Men's Rumble because there was no NXT guys coming in there. But yet there was Booker T, there was Logan Paul, Edge came back, which was great. And let me tell you something. Logan Paul and Ricochet, if you haven't seen the Royal Rumble, if you didn't watch the Royal Rumble match, you can go on to Peacock and watch it, and just for that, or if you see the meme or the GIF or GIF or whatever the hell you want to call it, just absolutely fantastic. Ricochet and Logan Paul colliding in there. And in the Royal Rumble, Logan Paul did the buckshot lariat, and I still say he does the buckshot lariat better than Hangman Adam Page from AEW. And just absolutely fantastic. Logan Paul is a tremendous athlete. Yes, he's a controversial character, and there are people that don't like him because of what he put on YouTube and everything. But you know what? Screw it. He does what he does for entertainment purposes, and I'm all for it. You know what I mean? So, screw y'all. Logan Paul is fantastic, and I look to see him being a big deal at WrestleMania this year. Granted, he's not full-time, but he'll do a number of matches throughout the year, and, he's not going to be there. But, there were a lot of people that were missing from both Royal Rumbles that I would have loved to see. I didn't see Ronda Rousey in the Women's Rumble, but I didn't see, Gallows and Anderson. AJ, we know, was hurt, but Gallows and Anderson were involved. You didn't see a lot of guys. Johnny Gargano was in the men's rumble, although he said that he couldn't do it because he was hurt, but he was obviously there. You didn't see Dexter Lumis. So I mean, the problem is the roster is too big now. You can't get everybody in the rumble like you used to, right? Back in the early '90s, you had to go out and get people for the rumble, right? You only had a very small roster, so you had to go out and get people. That's why there were so many surprises. Booker T was a surprise because he kept saying on his podcast, The Hall of Fame, that he didn't get the invite. He knew he was going to be on the pre-show, but whatever. And the women's match, everybody was like, "Oh, Naomi's coming back. Naomi's coming back." No, Naomi didn't come back. Amazingly, I thought she would have, but she clearly not in the cards. Let's see. You also had you obviously Sasha. People kept wanting Sasha Banks to come out. She signed to New Japan. She's not coming back to WWE. We don't need Sasha Banks, right? She's a toxic person in the locker room, so it's a good thing that she's not there. But overall, both Royal Rumble matches were top notch. Triple H's booking was fantastic. You know what I mean? There were a lot of people that there's haters for everything. For soap operas and WWE, there's haters for everything, and honestly, it's sickening how people just choose to pick and hate on just whatever, right? But ultimately, both Royal Rumble matches were great. I wasn't happy, like I said, the Pitch Black match, whatever. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a great wrestling match. Bray Wyatt is not a great wrestler. He's got a lot of the gaga around him, but ultimately, it's like, let's see more of that. Let's see more wrestling, which is why LA Knight was there. And everybody said on Raw 30 last Monday, the build-up for it, when they had LA Knight in the ring, and the Undertaker came out in the American Badass gimmick, which hasn't been seen in over 20 years. People were hating on that. Oh, why didn't he come down as the dead man? Probably because he didn't want to walk that whole length of the right. And then, the Undertaker set up like he was going to chokeslam LA Knight. Bray Wyatt came out, and then Undertaker, basically pushed LA Knight into the Sister Abigail, helping Bray Wyatt, and then whispered something into his ear. Assumedly passing the torch, if you will, for the new spooky darkness gimmick in the WWE, right? It was the Undertaker for so long. But ultimately, I wouldn't mind seeing LA Knight in the Intercontinental title picture. You know what I mean? Instead of this goofiness. But you know what? Hey, he got the rub from the Undertaker. He was in the ring with the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. You had Bianca Belair beat Alexa Bliss again after the match. Alexa Bliss gets quote unquote possessed, seeing the Uncle Howdy stuff on the big screen. So we'll see where that plays out and how that's going to be. Will we see the return of Lily the Doll and the possessed Dark Princess Alexa Bliss, which we've seen bits and pieces of over the past couple of months. Asuka, in the Royal Rumble match and the women's match, Asuka returned as a darker version of herself, closer to her Kana character in Japan. So that made a lot of the people online happy. And she's not this rambling, comedic Japanese character anymore. Now it's darker, right? So I think I like where that goes as well. Nakamura wasn't in the men's rumble. There were a lot of guys that were actually not in the Royal Rumble, which is okay. I just don't like the fact that they announced who was going to be in the Rumble, right? Because they announced every spot except for 3, and that was, to me, I don't like that because I would rather see the mystery. Like, if you don't know they're not going to be there, you're not, you're hoping to see them, right? You're hoping to see somebody, right? But either way, also of note, Chelsea Green returned to the WWE in the women's Royal Rumble, which honestly we've kind of figured out, and that was kind of spoiled. It was actually spoiled about a month ago when everybody's like, "Oh, she shut down her OnlyFans page," right? So that she didn't get into the same problem as Mandy Rose, and I really wish, and I did report it a couple weeks ago, but I really wish they would have brought. I really wish they would have brought Chelsea Green out as the new leader of Toxic Attraction and buried Mandy Rose, like Triple H did to Michaels the day after WrestleMania back in 1997, right after WrestleMania 14. But anywho, 13. Was it 13? Yeah, WrestleMania 13. It was 13 was Sid and The Undertaker. No, 14. Yeah, so it was 98, I think. Well, anyways, either way, the Genesis Degeneration X. Sorry, there's even, I know a lot about my wrestling history, but there's even times that I forget about it. However, now we go on to the main event. Right, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens for the WWE Undisputed the Undisputed WWE Universal Championship, and what a match it was. The storyline afterwards was the main part, though. Like, first of all, Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman came out with Roman Reigns. Obviously, you knew Heyman was going to be there, but Sami, we didn't know. But that must have been his final test. After this past Monday night at Raw 30. When they had the trial of Sami Zayn, and Roman said, you have to pass a test. You have to pass the tests in order to be an actual member of the bloodline. Right now, you're an honorary Uso. To become a full Uso, you have to pass the test, right? And and he said, I don't want to see you until Saturday. And then going on later on that night, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. Sami Zayn had to take up for Jimmy Uso when he got hurt, and became and helped to beat Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest of the Judgment Day to keep the Raw Tag Team Championships. So Sami proved himself that way. However, fast forward to Saturday night at the Rumble. At the very end, right, the match was great. You know what I mean? But it came down to Kevin Owens and Kevin Owens being nutshotted, right, by Roman Reigns, and because the referee was knocked down and he got nutshotted, and then all of a sudden he gets speared and the win, right? Basically, Kevin Owens was just knocked out after that, you know what I mean, and then got the spear in 1, 2, 3. Sami Zayn, after the match, brutal beatdown. They handcuff Owens to the top rope. All the bloodlines out there. Jimmy and Jey Uso keep super kicking him and beating him down. And then all of a sudden, the final test is get the chair. Because Sami Zayn stopped Reigns from beating up on Owens, saying, you're above that. You're above this. You're too good for this. Why do this? And Roman Reigns, you're right. You do it. Hit him with the chair. And it's great because Sami Zayn, you see that hesitation. He's got that thought process like, am I really going to do this, right? And Reigns was verbally abusing him and saying, you want this? You want to be part of the family? He doesn't care about you. I care about you. I call you family. You're my blood. And this and that. And then all of a sudden, he's like, go do it. And then Reigns turns his back. And then in the same fashion that Seth Rollins turned on Reigns in the Shield, Sami Zayn hit Reigns in the back with the chair. And then all of a sudden got beat down by Jimmy Uso and Solo and Roman. And who walks away? Jey Uso. Apparently Jey Uso walked away from Bloodline because he didn't agree with being down on Sami. So we'll see, because it's got a lot of layers to it, right? You would have thought Jey Uso was the first person not to trust Sami, and then all of a sudden after this week, and he does trust him, and then Sami turns, right? And you know what? They could probably spin it and say, hey, the only reason why I did that is because, honestly, I didn't feel right. I did not feel right doing that. I think you went too far. And we'll see how it goes. It makes it so that Raw and SmackDown now are must-watch TV. And I'm telling you, tonight, I will be watching Monday Night Raw. Live. yes, I got, it's funny because I signed up for Sling again just so I could watch Raw 30 in its entirety. Because honestly, yeah, I normally watch the Hulu version of Raw, but you cut out it's only 90 minutes. And with the first hour being commercial free, you would have gotten the first hour and then very little of the last 2 hours. So I wanted to watch the entirety of Raw 30, so I did get Sling. I'm going to watch Raw tonight, too. And I'm going to DVR Raw tonight. Because now it's must-see TV. SmackDown, I watch on Hulu. They do the full version, so fine. And that's what is great about WWE, is that it makes it must-watch TV. And I got to tell you, with the way that the storylines are being built now, it's fantastic. With Raw 30, and I made this tweet last week, was the one thing I really loved about Raw 30, outside of, the storylines, but they did the best use of legends that WWE has done in a long time. When Vince was still in control, the legends would come back. Normally, he would embarrass them, right? He would, like when Randy Orton was, being verbally abusive to the Big Show, or verbally abusive to Mark Henry coming in on the scooter after he had ankle surgery or whatever, right? They would embarrass the legends. This time, now granted, they had the card game with the Godfather and Ron Simmons and Alundra Blaze and Diamond Dallas Page and IRS and Ted DiBiase were there, and Baron Corbin was made fodder for it, right? So yes, you had that card game going on, but ultimately when you had Hulk Hogan come out at the beginning with Jimmy Hart, right, and he had some microphone issues, and everybody said, oh, he got booed out of the building. No, he did not. That was a huge pop when Real Americans started to play, right? Well, and he had to get a new microphone because the microphone kept going out. And then you had DX and Kurt Angle come out. Now, first of all, the thing that made the spot so funny was Road Dogg coming into his spiel. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X probably brings you, and he's going to do the New Age Outlaws thing, and all of a sudden he gets to where he would say Billy Gunn, and he sees Kurt Angle, right? And it's like, you didn't see Kurt walking out with you? And then Kurt takes off his Kurt Angle shirt, tried to say, I've always wanted to be a member of DX, and they do the DX fireworks, and then Triple H ready for Let's Get Ready to Suck It, but in the middle they get interrupted by Imperium. And the best, I'm sorry, but they used DX to get over Imperium. And it was absolutely fantastic. And you gotta love the comedy too. Gunther's like challenging him, and Triple H's like, I'm retired. Shawn Michaels, I'm too old. And Road Dogg's like, I'll try it. Never mind. And then they look at Kurt, and Kurt will do it. I'm not doing it. Right? So they set up for Seth Rollins and the Street Profits to come out. But either way, it was a fantastic episode. Best use of legends in a long, long time. Of course, you had Ric Flair introduce Charlotte, and just absolutely fantastic, right? Absolutely fantastic use of legends. Although, it's funny, Charlotte had nothing to do with the Royal Rumble. Charlotte wasn't even on there, and she's a SmackDown champion. The tag team champions, Jimmy and Jey Uso, they were part of the Bloodline thing at the beginning, but they weren't part of it. But they had a musical act of Hardy, and no, not Jeff Hardy, some other guy, Hardy. I've never heard of him before. But then again, I don't listen to much of today's music, so. Anywho, I'm starting to ramble now. It's the end of the hour. I want to thank you all for listening to the Suds in the Squared Circle podcast. Again, you can find this anywhere you find your favorite podcasts, even now on iHeart and Amazon. So everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at @VApicellaSuds. Follow on Sportswire. Oh my gosh. Follow the show on Twitter at SudsSQCirclePod. Follow on TikTok at Suds_squared_circle. Follow on Instagram at Suds and Squared Circle. email me, Vinny, VINNIE, at sudsandsquaredcircle.com. Go to our website, www.sudsandsquaredcircle.com, and then buy our merch which is sudssquarecircle.threadless.com. Thank you all for listening. I'm sorry about my voice. I've been under the weather for about a week, but I made it through it. So thank you all for listening. I love you all. And have a great week. We'll be back next week with another episode of Suds and the Squared Circle.